Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into something that feels, well, deeply familiar to a lot of Americans. It's this huge paradox. On one hand, you see incredible productivity, right? Fields overflowing, factories humming, services everywhere, human ingenuity just bursting at the seams. But on the other hand, there's this widespread feeling of anxiety, of scarcity. You feel it, like you're working harder than ever, but maybe falling behind. Think about Molly, who runs the diner down in Harmony Creek. Place is busy, town's factories are going strong, but she's sweating making payroll.
Yeah.
Or old man Peterson fed folks for 50 years, still worried sick about affording his prescriptions. It doesn't quite add up, does it? So our mission today, based on the sources you sent us, is to really map out the maze. Where does all that incredible energy, that abundance we collectively create, actually go? Because the argument here isn't about lack of effort, it's structural, it's about the flow.
That's the heart of it. The core question is, if we, the people, are generating so much real, tangible value day in and day out, where does it vanish to? And the sources are pretty clear. It doesn't just vanish. It's not like it evaporates. It's being systematically, well, siphoned off, channeled away upstream through some pretty well-established mechanisms. Think of it as an invisible drain.
Okay, the invisible drain. Let's unpack that. The siphoning system. The sources talk about how a paycheck, your reward for your work, goes through this thing they call the maze of worth.
Yeah.
It leaves your boss's account whole, but by the time it gets back to you or after you spend it, it's smaller, sometimes a lot smaller.
Yeah.
What's happening in that maze?
Well, the maze is full of tolls, little drains everywhere. Think about first just the sheer complexity of fees.
Ugh, fees.
Right. Banking fees, processing fees on transactions, those punitive late fees that seem to just explode out of nowhere. They pull value out without really giving much back in return service-wise.
Yeah, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Exactly. And then layered on top of that is the constant kind of silent pressure of debt interest. And we're not just talking credit cards here. We mean mortgages, car loans, student loans. These are big commitments that essentially mortgage your future energy. A big slice of what you'll earn next year or 5 years from now is already claimed. It flows out, often not locally, but to these big financial centers far away.
Okay, so fees chip away, interest takes big chunks of future earnings. And then what about just buying stuff, groceries, clothes, whatever?
That's another key mechanism.
Yeah.
The price markup. When you buy something, a significant part of that price doesn't stay local. It doesn't circulate back to, say, the shop owner or the local employees nearly as much as you'd think. A hefty portion gets vacuumed upwards to distant corporate headquarters, to shareholders who might be anywhere in the world.
So you put it all together, the fees, the interest draining future income, the markup sending money away.
And you see this systematic redirection. It's how people end up, as the sources say, living on leftovers, even when the overall economy, the nation, is producing a massive surplus. It's this slow, steady erosion of wealth at the local level, almost designed to be invisible day to day.
Right. Which brings us to the big question. Who built this maze? Who benefits from this invisible drain? The sources identify what they often call an iron triangle of interests. These are the groups positioned right between people and the value they create. First component. Big banks and the whole financial sector.
Yeah, their expertise is essentially extraction. They're masters of creating debt, of course, but also using complex financial instruments.
Yeah.
Speculation.
Things like securitized mortgages. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about?
It's exactly that sort of thing. They package up thousands of individual loans, mortgages, car loans, whatever, slice them up, figure out ways to minimize their own risk, sell off the income streams, and collect huge fees in the process. Often, they don't even hold the underlying debt long-term. They don't have skin in the local game,
Yeah.
And they've become so central, so powerful, they get labeled too big to fail, which basically means the system protects their ability to keep siphoning, even if they mess up badly.
It's like they've engineered a way to profit from our need for credit, but minimize their own risk.
Okay. Component 2 of the triangle, and this one is massive, the military-industrial complex.
Oh, it's a huge gravitational pull on resources. We're talking billions upon billions flowing into defense contracts. And the sources highlight how often these contracts run way over budget, fall behind schedule.
And that money isn't going to fix bridges or fund schools locally. Precisely. It bypasses urgent local needs. And the incentive structure can seem, well, broken. If you're guaranteed more money for delays or overruns, where's the push for efficiency? Plus, you have that revolving door of people moving between government jobs, regulating the industry, and high-paying jobs within the industry itself. It keeps the money flowing.
A self-sustaining cycle of expenditure. Okay, and then the third leg holding this up. Heavy lobbying and really complex rules. This is where the system gets kind of baked in, right? Beyond just elections.
Absolutely. This is how the architects operate beyond the ballot box, as the sources put it. Lobbyists work to shape regulations, tax codes, loopholes, all in ways that tend to favor the big, established players, the ones who can afford the lobbyists in the first place.
Like Sarah with her local bakery we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Think about her trying to navigate the tax code, health regulations, employment law. It can be a crushing burden for a small business, for a giant corporation. It's just a cost of doing business, managed by teams of lawyers and accountants. The complexity itself becomes a barrier, favoring the big guys.
It really does sound like a system built over time. You said this wasn't new. These sources trace this back generations, actually. When did the pipes start getting bent, so to speak?
Yeah, to really get it, you have to look back at some key moments, historical turning points that changed how money and credit worked in the U.S. The sources point strongly to the 1930s, right after the Great Depression began, specifically 1933.
1933, what happened then?
You had Roosevelt's Executive Order 6102 and then the Gold Reserve Act. Now, that sounds really technical, I know.
Yeah, kind of dry. What was the actual impact? What did it change on the ground structurally?
The core change was centralization of control over money. It effectively severed the direct link between the U.S. dollar and physical gold for citizens and concentrated power over the money supply firmly in the hands of the federal government. Before that, there was sort of a natural limit. The amount of gold reserves constrained really large-scale government spending or borrowing to some extent. Removing that link gave the central authority much more power to manage, channel, and, yes, potentially divert the value created by ordinary people.
Yeah.
It opened up new pathways for that upstream siphoning.
And right around the same time, you had the huge New Deal programs rolling out.
Yeah. Exactly. Things like the CCC, the WPA. Now, these programs were obviously responding to a massive crisis and did a lot of good. But structurally, they also changed the game. They channeled enormous amounts of value through centralized federal agencies. Money and resources flowed through Washington, D.C. first, rather than staying more localized. This created layers of bureaucracy, new rules, and new points where, frankly, the interests in that iron triangle could learn to position themselves to influence the flow. Efficiency wasn't always the top priority. Navigating the central rules was.
So the control became more centralized, the pathways for money changed, and then there was another big moment later in 1971.
Right. That's when Nixon completely severed the international link between the dollar and gold, ended the Bretton Woods system. This created floating fiat currencies money not backed by a physical commodity at all. The sources argue this basically untethered the flow from any physical limit. It turbocharged financial innovation, complexity, and the concentration of power in those financial centers we talked about. It paved the way for hyper-financialization, the repeal of regulations like Glass-Steagall that used to separate commercial and investment banking. It let the extraction mechanisms become much more sophisticated.
Wow. Okay, so this system, built up piece by piece over decades, directly feeds into what the sources call the backwards cycle. This explains, they argue, a lot of our political gridlock and frustration. Can you walk us through those steps?
Yeah, it's a really important connection they make. It basically goes like this. Step one, people work hard, innovate, create immense value. Farms, factories, services, the real economy hums along.
Okay, step one, we're productive.
Step two, as we just discussed, a significant chunk of that value gets diverted, siphoned off by these powerful systems, the iron triangle. Fees, interest, markups, inefficient big contracts, complex rules favoring the connected.
Value gets redirected upstream. Got it.
Step three, because that value has been pulled away, communities start to feel the pinch, acutely. This is where you see the crumbling bridges everyone talks about, the lead pipes, the schools struggling for basic resources.
Hold on. So the argument is the shortage we see locally isn't because the nation is poor, it's because the wealth generated there got diverted away.
That's absolutely central to the argument. The scarcity at the local level is a result of the diversion, not a reflection of overall national capacity.
Okay. That makes step four make more sense, which is?
Step four, government steps in. Seeing the real suffering, the failing infrastructure, the underfunded schools, government tries to fill the holes. It's responding to genuine need, but it's treating the symptom, not the cause, which is the diversion itself.
Right. It's patching leaks instead of fixing the pipe.
Precisely. And that reactive spending leads inevitably to step five, the political nightmare. Taxes have to go up to pay for the patches, or government debt balloons. And then you get the shouting matches.
The cut help versus raise taxes debate. That endless bitter fight.
That's it. That's the fight over the crumbs, as the sources frame it. The sense of scarcity driving that whole political battle is, in this view, manufactured by the diversion. The noise, the anger, the political polarization, it's a massive distraction. It keeps everyone arguing about how to divide the shrinking pie locally, while the Iron Triangle quietly keeps siphoning off slices before they even reach the table.
And it obscures something else too, doesn't it? And the sources mention our natural tendency towards generosity.
Yes, that's a crucial contrast. Think about how people naturally behave in communities. Neighbors helping neighbors, churches organizing food drives, volunteers coaching kids' sports. There's this inherent generosity, this unforced hand of kindness and mutual support ready to flow. But it gets overwhelmed. The scale of the systemic diversion is just too big. It forces communities to become reliant on what the sources call forced charity government programs just to cover the basics, because the organic flow of resources has been so heavily intercepted.
Okay, so if the diagnosis is a problem of flow, of bent pipes, then the cure isn't necessarily about baking a bigger pie, but fixing the plumbing. The sources lay out four main strategies to sort of reclaim the loaf. Strategy one is making the money map visible, transparency, basically.
Yeah, shining a bright light on where the money actually goes. Stop talking in abstract billions and trillions. Demand concrete, local conversions for big spending figures.
Give me an example, like what would that look like?
Okay, say there's a $300 million defense contract. Instead of just that number, the public should be told, this is the equivalent of replacing 10,000 lead pipes in Flint, Michigan. Or, this contract costs the same as hiring 2,000 extra teachers nationwide for a year. Make the opportunity cost real, tangible. That forces people to ask, are we getting good value? It builds public pressure for better deals, for different priorities.
Makes sense. Okay, strategy two, the prevention dividend. Shifting from crisis cleanup to proactive investment.
Exactly, moving away from just reacting to disasters and instead investing systematically to prevent them. This requires changing budget rules. Imagine automatic budget triggers. When, say, a bridge's structural risk hits a certain threshold, funding for maintenance automatically kicks in, no debate needed. Why? Because it is always cheaper to mend the fence proactively than to rebuild after the collapse. It shifts incentives away from profiting off crises.
Towards foresight. I like that. Strategy three sounds a bit more radical. Clawbacks in Commonwealth, accountability with teeth.
You could say that. The idea is, when there's clear failure, massive contract overruns due to negligence, financial fraud that harms the public, there should be automatic mechanisms to claw back the profits, the executive bonuses.
Okay, get the money back, then what?
And here's the key twist. You split that recovered money. Part of it goes to pay down public debt, national or local. The other part gets reinvested directly back into tangible community assets. Libraries, parks, local health clinics, things people can see and use. It turns that feeling of being ripped off into an act of collective recovery.
Turning lemons into library funding. Okay, and finally, strategy four, the local bloom. Protecting the roots, the local economy.
Yes, actively nurturing the local ecosystem where value is actually created. This means reversing that regulatory burden we talked about. Seriously, the goal should be less red tape for small local businesses than for giant, often unaccountable corporations, not more. Promote local banking, support co-ops, give preference to local suppliers in government contracts. Make it easier for money to circulate within the community multiple times before it leaks out.
So putting this all together, this deep dive really suggests that many of us have feelings stretched, feeling like we're in a land of plenty. But somehow poor, it isn't just a feeling. It's not imagined. It's the direct result, the sources argue, of a system whose pipes, whose flow, has been intentionally bent over decades, diverting the abundance we all create away from where it's generated. The task isn't necessarily creating more, it's fixing the flow, letting that abundance circulate back.
And that leaves you with a really provocative thought, doesn't it? The political system today keeps forcing this choice on you. Do we cut help for those struggling, or do we raise taxes on everyone? It assumes scarcity is the baseline. But imagine just for a moment, if the value created by ordinary people every day, their work, their ideas, their community efforts, could actually flow back freely, without being systematically siphoned off first, how much less forced charity through government programs would we even need? And what incredible acts of voluntary generosity, that natural human kindness, would finally have the space to bloom? What would that society look like? That's the potential here if we can unbend the flow.
Rastafari is the light and the way. Oh yeah. Without without Jah we drift away. Ethiopia stand firm in a defeat. So long from the days of Lalibela them chant.